Welcome back, Planeswalkers, to another episode of The Hive Mind. I'm your host, Jon Dunning, and this is the show where I traverse the multiverse in search of other prominent members of the Magic the Gathering community. And this one in particular kicks off the Hive Mind Summer Road Trip. And with me, before I introduce, although it's kind of a reveal right now, but we'll get to that later, my special guest made of barley and hops, that is. I do want to talk about how this show couldn't be possible without the support from cardsphere.com. So if you have unwanted cards in your trade binder or your bulk, just go ahead and trade your paper magic at cardsphere.com, and that's buy, sell, trade, all the good stuff. And if you like cool swag like this nifty little hat, you like t-shirts, all that good stuff, go to txcp.store. That's txcp.store. Enter promo code HiveMind to get your 15% off all your cool Cardsphere swag. So without further ado, I want to tell you about my beer. No, I want to talk about my special guest from KTM Podcast, Kitchen Table Magic, Mr. Sam Tang. Thank you for joining me, sir.
Thank you for having me, John.
Awesome. This is great. For all the Hive Mind-ites, I guess, out there, I don't have a name for my people.
Hive Minders.
Hive Minders, I guess bees?
Bees.
For all you seeing this, I don't really sit next to humans all that often, or planeswalkers rather, how dare I. Not since Ruben Bressler, but I'm so happy, and we are filming from a very special place.
That's right.
Yeah, it's not Hogwarts, it is MOX Boarding House in Bellevue, Washington. So this is just absolutely fantastic. This is kind of like the Mecca if you're into, Magic the Gathering.
That's right. Yeah, we're in one of the private rooms. It's called the library. It's very beautiful. You can't see, but on this other side, it's completely covered floor to ceiling in books.
Yeah. It's great. It's got good acoustics. It's fantastic, and they do let us drink in here.
Yeah. This is very special. I've never really done a lot of Magic the Gathering things with beer, so it's awesome.
Oh, good. Well, there's a first time for everything. And why don't you tell us about your pick for your barley and hops guest?
It is summertime, and in summer in Seattle is incredibly beautiful. So right now I have a Maritime Pilsner. It's very close to a lager. It's light, it's crisp, good with spicy food, salty food. It's perfect for summer.
Ah, look at you with a good palate. All right, and I am diving into a Great Divide IPA. I'm a big fan of the Yeti from Great Divide, but that's more of like a kind of holiday stout kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So cheers.
Cheers,
sir.
my friend.
All right.
Cheers. Ooh.
Ah, wonderful. Big hop bitterness, a little malty, but okay, still. So, as we start on each and every Hive Mind, sir, I would like to know your Magic origin story.
Well, I started off being handed a big paper bag full of Magic cards. Like when you grow up in like an Asian family, it gets to be a point in time when your parents are like, you don't play Magic anymore, you got to go to college. And so that's what happened with one of my family friends. They just were like, my kid's going to college, they don't need all this crap anymore, and literally shoved it to me. I think I was like maybe 8 at the time.
Okay.
And so they gave me this big paper bag, and I didn't know what it was, but I knew that they were Magic cards, because in my elementary school, there was always kids playing Magic cards, and it was a lot of fun to watch. Mm. And so looking through all the cards, and just like a comic book, like you get a hoard of comic books, I would read all the art, I would read all the flavor text, I'd read all the rules. I really wouldn't know how to play, but I would be very familiar with it. And that was just kind of like my thing. I just would organize them in every which way. So that's what I would do with Magic cards, until one day I was like in band. It was like a free period in band. For some reason, we didn't like have a class, and there were a bunch of my classmates that were playing Magic. And so I walk over, and they were like battling it out, and I was like, oh my god, this looks so epic. And I was like, hey, I have a bunch of those at home. And they were like, really? Bring them over. So the next day I brought them over. They were like, wow, you got a bunch of old school jank, and they taught me how to play.
I love it.
Right? And I built a green deck. I built a white weenie deck, nice. And that's how I started playing.
So you were, this is kind of a reoccurring theme on the show, and this is kind of how I started too. I traded a very ugly old school whale tail skateboard for a pile of Magic cards, and I think it's just a natural thing to do, to separate all the cards into colors, and just be like, here's my green deck. here's my white deck, and all that. So it sounds like you had a similar thing. What kind of cards were these? What set was kind of going around when you started?
When I started, it was like Mirage and Tempest, but the cards that I was given was anywhere between 4th edition, 5th edition. It was a bunch of old school stuff, nothing from like Alpha, Beta, Revised, or Unlimited, or anything like that. So it was all like low value stuff. It was like a bunch of elves. There was like a Force of Nature. It was a bunch of like whiteboarded stuff like that. Nice. Carapace, weird stuff from the dark. But then I was in middle school. I was cat sitting for a neighbor of mine, and she used to work for a company that did packaging for Wizards of the Coast.
Wow!
And so they got a bunch of samples because they had to do packaging. So she got a bunch of Tempest, Mirage samples. She also got a bunch of samples from Urza Saga. And this was so long ago that I don't mind saying this, but she was like, "The set's not out, so don't tell when I gave you."
Nice.
Yeah, this was like long before Urza Saga actually was released, and I was like,
just random cat lady, right?
Right? Yeah. No, but she was really nice. I mean, back in the day, I was a kid, but she was like basically in her 20s, so she wasn't like some crazy old cat lady. She was like all right, but like when you're like 12, you're like, oh my god, everyone over 17 is really old, right?
I'm ancient now to my kids,
right? So, but it was awesome because I remember this beautifully metallic packaging, and it was like the art. If you remember these Urza Saga packs, like that was like really like dramatic art. There was like a metal worm on it. There was a Beast of Burden on the Legacy one. It was just like so flavorful. So I just saw this. I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. Yeah. And I got them as payment and like went home, and of course I cracked them open, but I cracked them open alongside all of these other old cards that I had. I was like, hey, you're getting a fresh new batch joining the ranks. It was really sweet.
That is so awesome. And I think Urza block was the first block I actually drafted.
Really?
That was the first pre-release I went to. I started, I think Mirage just came, no, I'm sorry, Alliances just came out. So it was, the rocks were soft, all that, all those old man jokes from back in the day. But yeah, it was just, knowing what we know now about constructed Magic and how much of a mess Urza's block was, but it was so much fun. Like, I mean, it was acceptable to play with Survival of the Fittest and stuff back then. Yeah. It wasn't really considered as broken as it is now. And you think that and Mirrodin, it's just like, those are the two things that almost killed Magic along with everything else, right? Do you remember any of those sweet pulls?
Oh,
those
absolutely.
Cracking the packs?
Absolutely. The first pack I opened, so my official first pack I ever opened was Urza Saga. I remember flipping through it. I remember looking at this gorgeous art. I remember there was a Congregate in there. I remember there was a Dragon's Blood in there. My rare was Serra Sanctum. And when I saw it, I noticed the little cogs had different colors. And I was like, this one's gold. This one's got to be special because there's only one.
Sure.
And it said Legendary Land on it. And it looked epic. Yeah. And I was like, I don't know what an enchantment is, but getting a bunch of mana for enchantment seems
But I want them now.
Yeah. And it was amazing, right? And so I still have it. It's in mint condition. It's been sleeved up and very carefully stored. I've never really played with it. Maybe played with it a little bit in an EDH deck, but immediately pulled it back out and put it back into the binder. So yeah, that Serra Sanctum is very
so cool.
Near and dear to my heart.
You hear so many people crack those initial, especially when they're lands. Mm-hmm. And I've kind of talked about this on the show before when you crack those early dual lands or those even fetch lands and stuff like that. You're just like, as a kid, you're like, wah wah, like I don't want to land, like this is garbage. But it's good that you had the mental capacity and the maturity back then to keep that awesome land.
Well, you really give me too much credit, dude. Because actually what ended up happening was I didn't have any friends to play Magic with. And so no one sharked me.
Yeah, that's what it really is.
I actually didn't have any friends that played Magic. Well, I had friends, but I didn't have any friends that played Magic. And so no one sharked me on it. So I just kind of kept it in my toy chest. But the funny thing is, like early on, my first friend that actually played Magic with me, Alex, he didn't know how to play Magic really well anyways. Mm-hmm. And he had a bunch of random old cards too. So, we both built up decks together. And he would play Dark Ritual. And he said, this is a mana source. It's like a land. Yeah. So it stays on the battlefield and you tap it and it gives you 3 black. And of course he would smash me because it was like an Uber Black Lotus every single time. And so I just get totally wrecked. And I was like, oh my God, Thralls are terrible, which they are. Right?
Yeah. Oh man, I mean, back in the day, there was no reason to play any other color than black. Black literally did everything. It was like your mana ramp. You could go Dark Ritual to Bubbling Muck to Corrupt or Drain Life and win.
That's right.
And that's it.
That's right.
And it was just a better time.
It was turn 1 swamp, Dark Ritual, Hypnotic Spectre, pass, turn 2, him to Turok, you lose 2, attack for 2, and it's like, what? I just got mind twisted.
And you're playing white, and you're like, healing cells.
Yeah, where you're like, crossbow infantry, do nothing.
Who was it? Someone was telling me, they're just like, I just played a cop deck, and they just, like, circle protection, everything.
Yeah.
And he's just like, yeah, my friends hate me. It was like the original Pillow Fort.
Oh, yeah.
Oh man, I just love early Magic so much. So let's talk about your competitive play. So were you ever doing those Type 2 tournaments or drafts or anything like that? And when did you kind of get started in that?
As a kid, I never did any drafts. I was invited to a draft at my friend Clinton's birthday party, and I wasn't able to go. And I just was like, I regretted it for the rest of my life, because it was just like, all your Magic. Those were all the friends from my from band class, and they were just like the nicest kids, and they took me in, and that was also so interesting, so quintessential to the Magic community. Everyone in Magic is like super nice and generous to each other. And then when I went to college, went to high school, didn't play any Magic, got a job, moved to Seattle, and then all of a sudden one day I was like moving my stuff out of my mom's house, like, my old childhood home, and I was like, oh wait, all these Magic cards. And I was like, wait, I've got money, I'm an adult now. I can play Magic. So I go over to my LGS, and this was Gamma Ray Games in Capitol Hill back in the day, and they had like a really weird kind of eclectic store that was like a loft and everything. It doesn't exist anymore. They've remodeled since then. But I drafted there, and it was Rise of the Eldrazi. So it was like very modern Magic, level up cards, Planeswalkers, Eldrazi were revealed. It was like, and I'd never drafted. Yeah. Like, I've never drafted. I drafted this blue-black. Somehow I, had the foresight in the meta to, stay allied colors, stay disciplined, just removal and blockers and unblockable.
Sure,
and I went
flying.
I went 2-1 in that draft. I was like, whoa, this is really good. Drafting is easy, but it was really sick. I just remember Distortion Strike just being, and Nirkana Cutthroat just being a house.
Oh, Nirkana Cutthroat's so good.
People getting so hosed by me, and I just was like, I don't really, and I was literally went from being a kid with the sandwich bags and the dinged up cards and the dice bouncing around, the glass beads, to being an adult and doing the exact same thing.
Michael's stores could never keep in stock those little glass beads, right?
Right.
Did you have the giant, where your deck was like this, but then you put them all in the penny sleeves and immediately accordion up?
Oh, yeah.
You put it down, put it on the table, it's like... It's like a snake popping out.
Yeah, so way back in the day when Ultra Pro first made sleeves, I mean, they weren't very good, they never fit really right.
Oh,
and then Ultra Pro had that old logo with the jester, that crazy looking jester. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
They had those deck box sleeves, and there was a little window in it. Mm-hmm. What I would do is I would take clear packing tape, like the good 3M Scotch brand, right? And I'd tape it all up so it would be more durable. And it had a little window, and I'd store cards in it, and I just babied that thing, and that's how I did it. But ever since then, and then Rise of the Eldrazi draft, I played casually with my best friend Phil, and he lives out here in Seattle as well now. He's a lawyer, and so we just played Magic. And we just go to pre-releases, and I would go to F&M. I'd sum up the courage and go to F&M, and then by that time you're playing Standard Constructor. You just get crushed. I just totally get crushed. And then there's this thing called Modern. Yeah. And so Legacy was always I was never able to really play Legacy, but getting back into Modern, I bit the bullet again. Remember, this was still Zendikar, World Wake. Mm-hmm. Bit the bullet, bought play sets of all the enemy fetch lands. I spent around $280. I was shaking in my boots. I was like, I've never spent so much on Magic before. Yeah. And then now today, I was just best MTG finance decision I've ever made.
Right.
Yeah, but that's basically that. But in terms of competition, being up here in the Seattle area, the competition is so good. I just got my ass handed to me for 4 or 5 years straight, and I'm pretty sure all my friends up here know this. I mean, they Paul Blake and Brad Rutherford and Jordan Isaka. Those guys are so good. They kicked my ass so many times. I've cried salty tears for 7 years, and now I'm actually pretty good. But really, I cut my teeth on some of the best players. And
that's segueing perfectly to my next question. Just growing up in this scene, like I've stated, I'm from Vegas. There is a Magic scene. I mean, Efro's down there, Ruben Bressler's down there. A bunch of very good Magic players live in Las Vegas. However, it's not the mecca that Seattle area is. Do you have any stories of kind of early playing against would-be pros or even content creators or anything like that?
Let me think. I don't think I've played against them because just after the first couple rounds, I just would not get matched up against them at all. And I still played in Seattle back when they had the old PTQ system, which was like a 400, 500, 700 person grind.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being in Seattle Center, and this is where the Space Needle, they have a big, play area or whatever, and Cascade Games would like put on tournaments there. And I remember kind of some pros. I remember Chris Van Meter coming out here and playing and competing. I remember Cedric Phillips coming out here and playing. And I remember at the top tables, maybe of like round 6 or 7, like when it really mattered, right? Because you were playing for your winning ins. I would remember watching Cedric Phillips, and I was like, first of all, I was like, oh my God, it's Cedric Phillips, right? Like this guy is like an idol. I really respect him. He's an amazing thinker, writer, commentator, right? Person, pillar of the community. Sure. And now he's just like as far as here to the camera, right? And I just was like losing this big crowd, and I remember his composure, being able to play competitive Magic, and I just remember how fast he was playing. Wow. All of his movements, shuffling, tapping, untapping, drawing, putting spells down, checking the graveyard, moving to attacks, putting things on the stack. And I just was like blazing fast.
You're a pro player as opposed to an F&M regular, right?
Yes. Or a kitchen table Magic player. Sure. I was moved. I got like a little misty-eyed. I was moved.
This is what it's supposed to look like.
Yeah. I'm being serious. If you're like a basketball fan and you're there, and imagine watching Jordan like throw up a few layups, you're like the form, right? Yeah. Form. And I was just watching Cedric's form. I just was like, that's a pro. I was awesome. Like, that's real. That's the real deal. And I think that was the first moment when I was like, this is possible. Seeing a player achieve that level of competency and just being an elite thinker and player of the game, I was just like, this is a childhood pastime of mine. I did not know Magic could be this intricate and detailed.
You know what? Magic is, it could be so many different things. It could be a profession. Yeah. It could be a profession like kind of where we're attacking from it too. It's so, that's the great thing about it is that's what makes it better than, the monopolies and stuff like that, is because it could, there's so many different avenues, and Magic means so much to, differently to so many different people. That's really why it's the greatest game on Earth. Yeah. Or in the multiverse. Let's stay on theme. And I do have the chat open, and thanks everyone for joining us in the chat. Just get some questions ready. We will kind of circle in towards the end, and we want to hear from you guys. But yeah, I was just always thinking that just like, it's like where Magic came from, just growing up and being around this scene just had to have been something special. Even going down to places like Geek Fortress, I saw some Magic royalty and stuff like that. Just playing Modern and stuff, which is a good segue. So you said what's your favorite format? Is it Modern?
Yes, I love Modern. Modern to me is like Legacy 1.5. I just never really bought into Legacy. I really wish I did, because a few times I've played Legacy, in being like a super old school player playing for 15 years, 20 years, Legacy is the purest form of the game. But just kind of financially and practically, and then me also wanting to learn about what modern era Magic is and getting caught up on all the sets that's been released ever since, Prophecy, which was like an amazing set. I'm just kidding.
Sure, Sam. What?
But I mean, like, just learning all the different sets and getting caught up on all the mechanics. I really focused on Modern because it has such a large card pool, and it was also fairly easy to get into. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I got back in around Rise of the Eldrazi, and then Innistrad. And Innistrad, really, Liliana the Veil, Geist of St. Traff, Snapcaster Mage. Those were very defining key moments for what Modern was. And so I said, I bought into Standard. I ended up spending like almost $1,500 for that Standard deck. And then, so I was like, hey, I basically have all the pieces. I might as well just, play Modern now. So that really is my core format. And that and Draft Unlimited. Like, Draft Unlimited has always been a cornerstone of what Magic is as an identity.
Absolutely. And did you have a blast drafting Dominaria?
Oh, I did. Yeah. Yes, and I have a fantastic story about that later.
Absolutely. Yeah, and Modern, I tried to keep on the Standard train for so long. And when you think about it, it becomes more expensive than just buying that Legacy deck. It's just crazy. Because, you're like, I got it. I finally got it. And by the time you got it, you don't got it. Yeah. And it's just like, oh, man. So, yeah, Modern really to me, and EDH, of course. I love Commander so much. But, yeah, Modern to me. But I like that janky bruise. Me and Ben Bateman have the similar taste of like anything with Coco I just love Coco so much. I would run Naya Allies, and then I'd be really mean and do 8-rack for some reason.
Wow.
Yeah, not a lot of friends there. But yeah, so going to that, like just playing the game, where was that aha moment where it clicked where you're like, okay, I love this game so much, I want to talk about it and I want to make content about it?
This is great. There was a very clear defining moment. This was around, I want to say around 4 years ago, and I had really gotten into playing more and more Magic and trying to become more competitive at F&M and also different LGS events, modern events, whatever, and just getting crushed constantly, basically at every event that I went to, because the competition is very fierce up here.
Sure.
So I'm carpooling with my wife, and I'm in Seattle. I'm dropping her off, and it was around Wednesday, and she is about to step out of the car. She goes, "Sam, what do you want to do this Friday night?" Because she was like, I don't know, you play Magic every once in a while. I just want to make sure you're not going to play Magic. I'm just a bit homesick by myself or whatever, right? And
right.
I was kind of frozen at the wheel of a car, and I just burst into tears. Tears just went streaming down my face. And I just was like, I just want to play Magic. And I just was crying.
Yeah.
And she was like, whoa there, man, what's going on here? And
sure.
So
it was like a Snickers commercial. She was like, "Are you hungry?"
Yeah, no, it was wild. It was way more than that.
Yeah.
And she was like, "Well, let's talk about this. What's going on?" And I was just like, I go to these events and I go to LGS and I would just get crushed. And it's very hard. It's very disheartening.
Yes.
Everyone's really friendly, but at some point they kind of pat you on the back and just be like, "Better luck next time."
Yeah.
Going 0-4 for a long time is tough, right? So she was like, "Well, how about this? Why don't you decide what you want to do and let's talk about this." So the next time I talked to her about it, I was like, you know what? I do want to play more Magic and learn about the game and not kind of stumble around. And because every single time I was playing Magic, I felt like I was stubbing my toe, and it was painful and it was embarrassing, and it just was like, oh, I love this so much, but I just wasn't able to succeed. And so she said, well, what do you need to do to get your act together? Do you need to practice? Do you need to actually buy a real deck? What is it that you need to do? Do you need to get a playtest group? So I really thought about that, and then that's when I said, yes, I need to actually buy a deck. I got tier 1 deck. I can't be brewing jank and expecting things to happen, right? I need to make friends. I need to put out time during the week to say, these are the events that I'm going to go to, and then this is what I'm going to practice. So turn it into like a bowling league kind of a thing. Like officially be like, all right, here's my shoes, here's my ball, like let's do this, right?
Can you out any of the early members to this?
It was like Brad Rutherford, Paul Blake,
awesome.
Zach Brady. I mean, they're really strong players,
Yeah.
like Aaron Corsetti, like Josh Monks, like they're all fantastic players, right?
Yeah.
Like Wesley Higsby, like beat me so many times. Like all these people have just absolutely crushed me so many ways.
Sure.
But it's like every single one of my losses, I would see how they would play the game. And in its sense, it would be like them teaching me the answers. Like, this is how you play standard. This is what tempo is. This is how you get 2 for 1, right? And this is how you thought sees. And those are very, very, very
that took me a while to learn.
Painful, yeah, right?
It's my favorite card now, but yeah.
Right. And I take that for granted because so making that dedicated mental adjustment to say, I'm going to play competitive Magic, and then being a part of the community, getting on Facebook, actually reading articles, actually participating in Facebook groups, actually starting to put aside, my opinions and differences and say, hey, how am I going to get better, right? Reading from the pros, reading every article I could, understanding Magic theory, and then, asking people for help. That was also another big one.
Yeah, wow. And the first thing that really resonates with me is your wife being that support system, especially with she's humored me through a lot. I thought I was going to be a UFC fighter at one point. It's just absolutely ridiculous what goes on in guys' brains, right? We think that we're the best at anything or can be the best at everything, and I had that moment too where I'm just like, yeah, I'm gonna drop $500 and I'm gonna be a Magic pro, and she's like, what? You know how many children we have, right? That's a lot of college. And I'm just like, well, I'm really good because I would smash F&Ms and I felt really confident about it. But she humored me, and then with time and everything, it just didn't work out. So yeah, but that is, your partner being a support system is such an unsung part of the story, right? Yeah. It's always, you kind of, content creators and stuff like that, we're the face of whatever the content is that people are intaking, but it's always that support system that are the unsung heroes. So good on your wife.
Thank you. And she really appreciates that, and I do very much credit her for her patience and her understanding and her just being like, this is not just Sam going crazy every week about something so random. Because and she used to hate Magic because I would come back from Magic and I'd just be in a horrible mood, right?
Sure.
And she's like, "What is wrong with you? Why do you go to do an activity and you come back in a miserable mood?"
Yeah.
And and it was that understanding of what. In very much a sense, a toxic spiral of any activity. Like, we just take Magic out of it. I could have gone bowling. I could have gone kayaking. Sure. I could have done pottery. I could have been anything, right? I could have been miserable. But she was just like, something you're doing is making you miserable. If you really love it, can you have integrity for this thing that you say you love and actually get your act together? And I said, you're right. I'm not going to do Magic an disservice of saying, I'm unhappy about it. I'm actually going to say, no, it's not Magic's fault. I'm going to get my act together. And that's when it completely changed. I just absolutely loved Magic, had a great time. My record started getting a little bit better. And I crawled from 0-4 to 1-3 to 2-2 and then now 2-1 and, it just slowly got better.
That's awesome. I remember even coming home from doing well. And just being in a shit mood, and it just takes a lot out of you, right? Especially when you're playing really good games and you're playing these really good back and forth and these great interactions. And I'd come home just like pissed, and she's like, "Oh, bad night at the office, honey," and I'm just like, "No, actually, I didn't lose." and then I'd sit down and I'd start putting in all the cards that I just traded for into my decks, and she's like, "You just took 4 or 5 hours away, can we stop?" And I'm like, "But I got to put them in now."
But the PTQ.
Exactly. It's just so addictive in a great way and a bad way. Believe me, I've sold off my collection, I think, twice now, but it is a hard thing to quit in one form or another, right?
Right, yeah.
So going, like you said, there was that big aha moment. So let's talk a little bit about the genesis of the KTM podcast.
Yeah. So this was crazy. I joined a Magic Facebook group, and it was Travis Wu's and Adam Yurchek and Ben Freeman's Facebook group. And this was a closed Facebook group about coaching and trying to help people get better.
Awesome.
And so this was back before all the T-Woo controversy. And it was just like, wow, this was like, a very...
And the Ben Freeman
controversy. It was back before a lot of
very controversial Facebook group.
But there was a lot of very aspiring players from the community that joined it. And I made a lot of friends from that community. One of my very good friends now, Brian Anderson. Brian, we met in that group, and it was all about learning how to play Magic and learning how to really level up and taking measurable stuff to be accountable and things like that. And so, I said, hey, I'm doing all this. I'm having such a great structure learning how to play Magic that I feel like I should also add talking about and making content about Magic also an established part of my Magic learning. And I decided that because I was going to make content about Magic, that it would hold me accountable to really understand these key topics. So when you teach something, you are also mastering it yourself.
Sure.
And so, but I never thought of myself as producing spike content. I was also, or strategy, because I myself don't have the resume to do that. But I was also thinking about just talking to people. And I said, I could kill 2 birds with 1 stone. I could talk to people about Magic, learn about Magic, and also understand something about Magic that I did not understand, and also gain proximity to people who have much deeper understanding to it. So that's when I decided, hey, I'm going to start a podcast. So I polled 2 big Magic groups, Magic for Good and also Magic the Seattling, about what this new podcast should be. And it was like all these crazy names and everyone, so the name Kitchen Table Magic was voted on by the community. I did not come up with that name. So it's like this show 100% is the community.
That's cool.
To fund the podcast, I sold off a whole bunch of my cards.
Yeah.
Hello. I sold off a bunch of Snapcasters. Yeah. I sold off a Karn Liberated. Awesome. I sold off all this stuff. I had this little spreadsheet about how much I sold and then how much the equipment cost me. And then I just went out and just asked. And I'm incredibly grateful for Brian. Brian Anderson. He's just like an incredible friend. Back in the day, he was just messaged me. He was like, hey, man, I'm in this group with you. What do you need for me to help you? It's like, I'm here to help. And we made this spreadsheet of all these people. And he got me in touch with so many people. He's from Utah. And he's one of the partners of Paragon City Games, a sponsor of Kitchen Table Magic for many years. And he's just just nicest, coolest guy, very connected in the community. He has a huge passion for Magic the Gathering as well. And just, got me in touch with a whole bunch of people that through one person knowing another person, got my Chris Bakula interview. And, so made a huge contribution to the show.
That's awesome. And was that kind of around the time when Tiwu was on fire? He was on the SCG tour doing very well. I remember all those kind of interviews. I forgot what they're called now. The ones that Ruben would conduct and all of them when they sit and talk. Because Tiwu was just a great brewer. He's got a great brewing mind. And Adam at that point was doing big things on the TCG
that's right.
states and all that.
That's right.
All that was going on. So was that around the time when that all was happening?
Yeah, it was right around that time, and it happened a little bit later as well, that Tiwu formed that group. But it was just and also there was controversy, and then Travis stopped streaming, and then he formed the group, and then I kind of joined in. But being like I said, a kitchen table Magic guy, didn't even know how to draft. I was not connected into the Magic community. I was not on Twitter. I was Twitter was still kind of developing at that time. Magic the Gathering social media was also in its very nascent stage, so there wasn't a lot of established communities at that time. I had no idea where any of the drama was or the community consensus on things was, and so just knowing Tiwu from years ago, being like, oh my gosh, you are the Tiwu brewer, or whatever. I was, and also knowing of Adam and knowing of Ben Friedman as well and their tournament success, I was like, wow, these would be awesome people to learn from.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then after that, I started my podcast. I was like, I just went out and asked. I was like, can I interview you and talk to you about that? And he was like, I don't know if you want to. He was like, I don't know. I think,
he's honest about
I was like, I will be your first and last episode. I was like, no one's going to listen to it. I will bomb your show. And
that's hilarious.
And, what was really interesting was that he was very generous. He said, are you sure you want to do this? Do you know about me? Have you done the Google search? And I said, yes. I was like, let's do the interview. So, I had not done any kind of podcasting. I've been a graphic designer and a CEO and a CMO my entire life, and I've just been doing corporate stuff. But understanding going from marketing into media, I said, well, so I better make sure that the show is tight, so I learned how to edit, and it took me a month to edit everything, and I was very, very careful about it. I was very careful about the audio setup as well. Yeah. So when I interviewed him, Travis was living in Seattle at the time with some family members, and I interviewed him, and we got a very in-depth interview, and I said, look, I'm not going to ask you softball questions. I'm going to ask you about what happened, and let's talk about it, and maybe there could be some redeeming qualities about it. One thing is that, a lot of people will disagree about this, and they're like, no, there's nothing redeeming about Tiwu, but then there's also another camp that's like, Tiwu did nothing wrong. Yeah. What's very fascinating about that first interview that I learned was that it's very complex. A singular individual is very complex, and though he didn't said things that were not right, and he does apologize, and he takes it all back, he's such an interesting thinker that the way he thinks about his world and the way he thinks about life, he asks why a lot, right? And so, and people don't really know this about him, but he's like the biggest hipster I know.
That is very true.
He does dunk training, basketball endurance training. He's a physical trainer. He's like nutritionist. He does athlete. He doesn't wear any deodorant because he doesn't want any chemicals in the body. He eats very clean. He will walk around the tournament with literally a bag full of raw vegetables. I mean, he's like Farfetch, that Pokemon. He'll be walking around with a leek, chewing on a leek, right? Nice. He's living in Hawaii now on a farm. He walks on the beach, and he's a very different way of thinking about media. He has a very different way of thinking about his own personal brand and how to live his life, and Magic as a game. And it is a shame about what happened. I wish none of those things ever happened, because I think when he was popular and people were like, he's doing great things and being a brewer, like Tiwu the brewer, that was a very healthy time for Magic.
Absolutely.
And just given the climate and given the way things are in the world and the United States and on social media, and what social media in 2018 has become, it's, you're going to get people shit posting, edgelords, trolls, and that kind of ideology and thoughtfulness is going to be in that kind of space. And so, but I mean, that is what it was, and that is what happened, and he completely, accepts responsibility for it. But that was the first episode. I mean, I was like, look, I'm not trying to get into drama. I don't believe in any of that.
Look, I'm new at this.
I was like, oh my gosh, right? But I mean, that was very funny, because even episode number 2 was Christine Sprangel. Yet it was two ends of the spectrum.
What a dichotomy!
It was a very big dichotomy, and it was a very much, and ever since then, it was just like, Wedge and Nathan Holt and Kenji
Yeah.
Agashira. It was like, the prof and everything else.
And not to turn this into a T-Woo interview, because we are here to learn about Sam Tang, but talking to Nathan Holt in the last Hive Mind episode, where he said that Enter the Battlefield had a section on Travis Wu, and I'd still say, I'm like, I want to see that director's cut.
Yeah.
Because I think that's, everything you said. Should he have done these things? Absolutely not. Should he have gotten the heat he got? Probably. But he is still an interesting person and a very different and interesting individual. And I would love to see. That Enter the Battlefield. I mean, with Patrick Chapman is very interesting as well as Owen and all that. And I thought they did a great job with that. But I still would really like to see that from a different lens.
Yeah, I would say that of the time that I've spent with Travis and talking to him, personally, and kind of hearing and kind of understanding what angle he comes in, I don't know if this is a perfect analogy, but ideologically, he's very liberal, and people will absolutely disagree with me on that statement. But the thing is that sometimes when you spin too far over, you come back around the other side. And
sure.
And he's just like I said, he's always asked why.
Yeah.
And he's not malicious. I don't believe that he's malicious. He's a very kind and he's a very sweet person, and I've always seen that side about him. But yeah, it did not work out. It did not come out well, and he paid the price for and there are consequences.
Absolutely.
So.
And so talking about that, and again, the segues are just perfect this episode. From episode 1, June 21st, 2016, that was with T-Woo. You've had people like Christine Sprinkle, like you've mentioned, Chris Bakula, Wedge. Just an amazing who's who of the Magic the Gathering celebs, dare I say. What are some of the crazy things that stuck out? What are some of the heartfelt things that stuck out? Being in this interview space, sometimes you go in and you think, hey, it's going to be a kind of a paint by numbers thing. And then sometimes special things happen. Do you have any of those moments that really stick out to you doing the podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start off with something kind of funny and lighthearted. I never thought that I would get an interview with Mark Rosewater. I just was like, this is never going to happen.
Yeah.
But a very good friend of mine, Frank Stanley, he's the tournament organizer here at MOX Boarding House. He was just like, he has a degree in journalism, and he very much encouraged me early on. It's like, hey, if you're gonna do it, man, go big or go home, right?
Sure.
So he said, it is your responsibility to go out there and to make these requests. You can ask, they can say no. And so I was incredibly grateful that Wizards of the Coast said yes to an interview, and we set it up with Mark Rosewater. I did a lot of research about Mark to make sure that the conversation we were having isn't just the softball stuff. Just
right.
Asking him more about what he was working on then, cohesively what's happening in the future. And so I learned about this thing about bananas, right? He hates bananas. So in the sound check, like I do a little bit of a sound check before every single recording.
Right.
I ask him a question, and then I expect my guest to speak a little bit more, and I would adjust the levels as he's answering that question.
Sure.
So I asked him, I was just like, so tell me how much you like bananas. And he hates bananas. And he was dead silent.
Oh no!
And I just was like, oh my gosh.
Oh.
And so I was like, okay, well, we're not gonna
Daddy hit mommy at the dinner table
oh
moment.
gosh.
Oh
yeah,
no.
yeah. He was like, I don't know you, I am not having it.
Oh no.
But he was a really nice guy, and obviously we changed gears and softened up. But in that interview was great. So that was very funny.
The face got hot at that point, right?
My face got hot.
Oh no.
Another very funny, very surprising, emotional moment for me was when I interviewed Brian Brown-Duin. I asked him, I was just like, you have had this rocket trajectory from being a grinder to working in like the shipping department of SEG to being the world champion, right? Like, what is it like, and how has it been? And so he told his story about how he said he was going to make it. And he, packed up all his stuff, moved to Roanoke, didn't really know anyone, crashed on people's couches, just got any job he could at Star City Games, carried all of his stuff in a literal garbage bag, a literal trash bag. Yeah. Right?
It's like those old cartoons with the stick in the...
Yeah, the stick in the bag, right?
Yeah.
going from event to event, hopping in the cars and just going, right? And there was one tournament that he said that he just kind of like didn't have anywhere to put his stuff, like his clothing. It was like basically all the stuff that he owned, and he's pretty minimalist. And he didn't think he would get stolen, so he put all of his stuff kind of underneath the car, and then went back and competed in the tournament. And he doesn't remember how he did. I think he scrubbed out or whatever. It wasn't like he won it or anything,
right?
But it was like an average finish. He goes back to the car, and all of his stuff is gone. And that was a moment that he just said that he just hit like a new low. It was like, it wasn't rock bottom, but it really got him to be like, let's do this, right? This is it. I don't have much. And that's when it really kind of was real for him. And it was very tough. Yeah. And he was like, whoa, that was really tough. So I played that part of the tape because I made it like a little preview clip. I played it for my wife, and she doesn't do anything, man. She doesn't know who any of these people are, right? Yeah. She was listening to it, and she started crying.
Wow.
She started crying. She was like, I cannot believe that you're pulling this out of a Magic player.
Absolutely.
And I was very like teary about it too. I was like, I can't believe it. And that turned me into a BBD fan for life, because I was just like, I cannot believe the cost that it took. Yeah. 4 years. He did not stop playing Magic 24/7 for 4 years. World champion.
Yeah, and that's where I was going. I mean, he's the consummate rags to riches kind of in the Magic community, because world champion. He's such a dry kind of comedic. He's got great comedic timing. By the way, he's very funny. Yeah. But yeah, just very open, especially for a pro. He's not a pro, but a pro. Yeah. Which is great. But yeah, Christine Sprinkle, that had to have been.
Right. And
very interesting.
Yeah, she was, I during my interview with Christine Sprankle, she was very scared to talk to me, because at first she was like, I don't know who you are. Sure. You're a stranger to me. And I didn't understand why she was so standoffish at first. And she's very kind and she's very sweet, and she gave a very good interview, but she always was very distant, even with me, even as I was trying to book the interview or letting her know her episode is coming out soon and blah, blah, blah. And then only months and years later did I realize that it was only because of the amount of harassment that she got. I mean, she got this, I mean, we're sitting here, we're talking, we're feeling pretty at ease. There's, but
I'm spilling beer on my shirt as you see. It's like I got murdered over here.
But, but can you imagine if, like, over here on the window, there's like a horde of zombies pounding on the glass? It's like that level of harassment that she endured. And now I realize, after being in the community and really understanding what it was, that she endured a significant amount of harassment. And even then, she would go to GPs and she would put on a smile, and her cosplay was immaculate. Yeah. And she was the face of Magic for a little while. She was Chandra Torch of Defiance. I just was like, wow, like, we can do better, right? So that was also like, I was able to kind of pierce the veil and kind of see what was going on, and I was in a very neutral position. I felt like I really recognize and understand the position of privilege that I have. Being able to be the documentarian and being able to ask all the probing questions, but also be able to be at a very safe distance from all of it, being able to dissect it and understand it and kind of milk it for what it is and put it on the podcast and be able to talk to people about it and tell people, hey, I've had this experience with this influencer. But no, it's like, this is what's really happening in reality, this person's life. And that just grind my gears. It boiled my blood. So whenever, she would make announcements, I always helped in every way I could. I had a force of will. And when she said, hey, I need help, I was just like, I will immediately auction this thing off. Any way that I can help Sprankle, I will. And some people are just like, Sam, you're an idiot. And I was just like, no, I'm not. Like, I'm clearly making a choice. I completely understand what it is. And like, I also think about the overwhelming amount of generosity that other Magic content creators has done for me. Literally a no-name, like I want you to turn back the clock and look at the calendar. June 20th, 2016, I was literally a nobody. June 21st, I was Sam, host of Kitchen Table Magic. And it was only Sam, host of Kitchen Table Magic, because of Travis Wu, Christine Sprankle, and Adam Yurchuk, and Wedge from the Matasaurus that were my first 4 episodes. That is the only reason why. And, I talk about generosity. Christine's generosity to me, Wedge's generosity to me, the prof's generosity. I talk about like Jerry Thompson, for example. Yeah. I interviewed him, and he's up here from Washington. And after our interview, every single time he's seen me at a GP, we were at GP Vancouver, I think this was late 2016 or 2017. he would come up to me and he would shake my hand and he would ask me how I'm doing genuinely. And I would feel a little embarrassed. I was just like, you're Jerry T. You have somewhere to be. I'm just kind of standing here with my sealed pool. Like, you have somewhere to be. And I just was like, I don't want to bother you. But he was like, he kind of took a few steps away, but he came back. He wouldn't take my no for an answer. He was like, no, but really, Sam, how are you doing?
That's awesome.
And I was like, Jerry really wants to know how I'm doing, like as a person. And I go, no, really, Jerry, I'm doing great. And I really appreciate it. I still was like, I didn't tell him at the time, but I was like still very starstruck and still very grateful of just, him asking me how I was doing.
Sure.
Every GP I run into him, he comes up to me. He comes up to me and he goes, oh my God, who is this guy? And, we do like a selfie or whatever. And he's just like the nicest, sweetest person.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
From what I know about him, I would love to talk to him, and I know he's very busy. As of like everybody is super busy, especially when you get to that level. That you want to hear from an interview from that person. Everyone's got so much on their plate, but yeah, Jerry is just what he did with his Pro Tour winnings and his trophy and everything is just absolutely incredible. Also, you were talking about everything, auctioning off the Force of Will for Sprankle and just getting a lot of crap for it. And that's kind of what just happened with Wedge. And I don't want to turn this into that thing, but it's just like, there just comes a time where it's just okay to be there for people in need. And just everyone needs help sometimes.
Yeah.
And, although I couldn't make a giant financial contribution, I got to spread the word a little bit. And at least that, that made me feel pretty good. And I hope that helped. And I got a very touching, I think that's one of my favorite moments of being a content creator, was getting a comment on the video that we made for him. Ted from Cardsphere and I made for him in the comment section from his sister. Just absolutely wonderful girl. Her name's Ashley. She's just such a great person looking out for her brother, and it was just very moving. The amount of good feelings from her and her family, and it's that kind of stuff. Because I don't think you really get into this to make the bling. It's to get those experiences and these experiences. Just sitting here kind of talking, you almost become a junkie for it a little bit, right? It's just like to get these awesome just times that you'll just remember is just fantastic and worth more than any amount of money. So coming from, dare I say, you're pretty successful at what you're doing. You've been doing this for a couple years now. Just, and a lot of the viewers here kind of are, I have a lot of viewers that are also content creators. So coming from someone in your position, reaching out to people just starting out. It doesn't have to be what we're doing, not interviews and Q&As and stuff like that, but just for deck techs or just for openings and stuff like that. From someone from your standpoint, what kind of advice can you give the audience?
That's a fantastic question. I would break down the content creation cycle into 3 big pillars. So this is very easy, so if you'd like to take notes. First is the process of creating something. How do I record? How do I film? How do I set up lighting? How do I edit? How do I make it not sound like shit? Because let's be honest, it needs to sound good and it needs to look good. If you're a writer, you need to know how to write, all this kind of stuff. If you're a voice actor, you know how to speak, right? So the process. So everything that you want to do, you need to do that well. I'm sorry, but you cannot not do it well. Right. On the internet, when there are a million people making things, like everyone is better than you. There's better interviewers than I am. There are better streamers. There are better vloggers than I am. There's better everyone's and everyone's, right? So you have to just make your craft the best that it can be. Sure. That's the first pillar, the process. Whatever you create, make it flawless.
I'm literally taking notes, ladies and gentlemen.
The second thing is yourself. It's like who you are and what you want to be. That one, you don't need to compare it with anyone. So this is the polar opposite of the first one, the process. Sure. It's just who you are as an essence, what you're creating. That one, you're going to lock away in your own heart, your own soul, and you're only going to be the best version of yourself. You're not going to compare it to anyone else. You are not going to say there's someone better. There is no one else. There is not another Orzhov Dunn. There is not another Sam Tang. I'm sorry, but we're unique. So be the best version of yourself. So know yourself, develop yourself, stay true to yourself, and just be the best version of yourself. So that's the second one.
And that takes a while to hone. Sorry to interrupt you, but it really does. Yeah. It takes a very long time because when you're starting content creation, obviously you're going to have influences, right? And those influences are going to be very prominent in your content.
That's right.
And then it's just being able to find your own voice and kind of scale back those influences to show what you can do.
That's right.
And you're, like you said, you're going to be the best you.
Yeah.
You're not going to be the best, whoever. Like you said, Cedric Phillips or Chris Stuckman's for movie reviews, or Jeremy Johns. You just can't be those people. You got to be the best you.
That's right. And you're right, dude, because you want to take inspiration. And so the inspiration, for example, that I take for myself for Kitchen Table Magic is James Lipton of Inside the Actors Studio. He asks he does the most awesome interviews. Yeah. And then I also take Cal Fussman from the What I Learned column so he's like an amazing interviewer.
Okay.
So I really take those two, and also Nardwar, the human serviette. If you go onto YouTube and you go look at Nardwar, because the way he interviews, he's eccentric and crazy, but I've never seen so many A-listers get stunned by the questions that he asks. And,
right.
and that is also a quality that I bring into my interviews as well.
Absolutely.
So the third pillar here, now this one is going to be more mechanical. So the first one is where you compare. It's very fluid and you try to perfect it, and maybe you're chasing after something. The second one is yourself. You do not compare, and it's, again, very fluid because you could change. The third one is not fluid at all. It stays the same every single time. Believe it or not, this one's called marketing. Distribution. You can have the best show possible, and if only 3 people see it, guess what? Only 3 people see it. Yeah. But if you could have a really terrible show and millions of people see it, then you are famous. So you have to balance those things. And the third one is important because it's mechanical. It is just like your heart beating. It has to happen. You don't think about it, but it has to happen. If it stops happening, you die. Same thing with breathing or blinking. It just has to happen. So if you have a great product, and you are yourself and unique, and then you market your show and everyone sees it, that's all you have to do. And so you have to balance and you have to juggle these things. And it really is a juggling act, because Absolutely. You have to know when to scale one up and when to scale something down. And you only have 24 hours a day, and you have to get a full night's sleep, and you have to be able to eat and take care of yourself. So you have to balance these things, right? So that really is my core advice for content creators.
Awesome. Absolutely. That's worth its weight in gold right there. We have to move on a little bit. We are kind of running up against it because I do want to get to Face the D20. A live Face the D20 is always so much fun. But just real quick, recently you've become full-time content creation. Yes. Anything that you could spoil or tease for the group?
Well, that's right. So I recently retired out of my day job to do Magic content creation full time, and so I have to be very careful about what I tease in terms of the Magic multiverse.
Sure.
But just in terms of Sam Tang, I'm going to be starting a food travel show. I'm going to be traveling around the world. That's correct.
Awesome.
I've been planning this for quite a while with my wife.
Hot scoop.
I'm going to be traveling around the world, and I'm going to be filming a food show. And I was very sad about the recent passing of Anthony Bourdain. But you know, as it is, he was a great inspiration for me, and I even got to meet him once, twice actually. But I would like to start a food show, and I'll be traveling around the world, and I hope to make it Magic themed. So I'd like to bring Magic people along.
That's awesome.
In terms of Magic multiverse teasers, there is going to be an M19 pre-release vlog that I filmed with Card Kingdom and MOX Boarding House. It's going to be coming out later this week. So be on the Card Kingdom and MOX Boarding House YouTube channels and Facebook page and Twitter, and I'll be tweeting it out as well at SamoTango when it gets released. I'm very happy with it because I think it turned out really well. Every vlog that I do, it gets better and better and better. So it's a lot of fun.
Confirm.
Thank you so much. And it's about M19, and I was really happy with M19. I thought it was a lot of fun. But there are also some very large projects down the road, Magic related, that unfortunately I cannot talk about. However,
I tried.
When they are out, my name and face will be on them, and I'm executive producing them, so I will make sure that it is faithful to the Magic community and that it's a lot of fun and it's also high quality. So that's all I can say.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you for those tidbits, so to speak. But it's time, Sam. We've had a lot of fun, but it's time to face the D20.
Ooh, I'm very excited.
Are you ready for that? Okay, so for the uninitiated, face the D20, unphyrexied, or what's the I guess the adverb or the adjective for being phyrexized again?
Phyresis.
Phyresis, yes. So for the the unphoresis. I've had a couple. We're going to, I'm just going to explain. Face the D20 is simply this. I roll a spin down. Each one of the numbers represents a non-Magic the Gathering related question, just to kind of get to know Mr. Sam Tang a little bit. We got about 8 minutes. So
let's
we're just
fire it off.
Yeah, let's get right to it. So, oh, sir.
You want me to do it?
Well, you're the guest. Yeah,
Okay.
you roll the dice.
All right, here we go. All right, so bam, number 4.
Lucky number 4, favorite place you've ever visited. This is an easy one.
Oh, wow. So for my 30th birthday, I went to Singapore.
Okay.
And in Singapore is in Southeast Asia. And not in Singapore is a country called Indonesia.
Not in Singapore.
And in Indonesia, there are many islands, thousands of them.
Yeah.
And one of the islands is a very big island. It's called Bali.
Yes.
And in Bali, there's a lot of mythical, amazing places. And one of those places is called a temple in the ocean called Tanah Lot. And you could Tanah space LOT. It is a temple in the water.
What?
I somehow, don't understand how I found this, I somehow found myself in the mythical temple of Tanah Lot on my 30th birthday, on the day at sunset. And I was blown away. I was mesmerized. My friends Mary and Ricardo and their 2 beautiful kids and my wife Hannah, like we went, and I just was like, you see this stuff on Travel Channel and you never think that you're actually going to be there. And then for some weird reason, I ended up there, and I just was like, my eyes popped out of my head. I stood there and I just was like, I cannot believe I'm here. And it was incredibly majestic, and the tide was coming in, because you have to walk out to this island. And the tide was coming in, and people were like exiting the island because they would get trapped on this island. And I just was standing on the rocks, and the sun was setting, and I just was like, I cannot believe I'm here.
Jealous face, just so you know.
Not a lot.
You've actually planeswalked to Ixalan, is what you're saying. You saw brontosauruses.
It was really, really beautiful. Yeah.
Probably better than Magic set. Oh, next roll.
Oh boy. Okay, next roll. Here we go.
That's awesome, man.
Number 13.
Oh, lucky number 13. Number 1 thing on your bucket list. Well, going to that place.
Gosh.
Jesus.
Wow. Okay, so number 1. Okay, so I think the number 1 thing on my bucket list would be to be food famous enough to be a celebrity judge on Iron Chef.
Oh man!
Because the food that they cook is so amazing. I mean, you're making food
Chef.
That's Michelin star quality, and it's never going to be made ever again.
Dude, if I knew you were this food and beverage, I mean, we would have hung out a long time ago.
Yeah, seriously.
I have such a background in food and beverage. Man, yeah, you bring the food knowledge, I'll bring the wine knowledge. All right, roll it up.
Okay, here we go. Let's go.
Great.
What's the next one? All right, number 3. Okay.
Yes, if you could have been cast, I'm trying to read here. If you could have been cast in an extra in any film, what would it have been?
Cast as an extra in any film, what would it be?
Yeah.
It would have to be a Star Wars film. It would have to be. Like,
okay, which one? And you can time travel.
Oh, time travel?
Yeah. So you can pick a good one.
I would like to be cast as an extra in number 9, the one that hasn't been released.
Okay.
That would be amazing.
Because you're gonna make it good.
Maybe. Yeah, I will be like a meme. I'll be like, I want to be a meme character, something like that, or but like not as an extra. But if I had a main role, I'd like to be the villain of a Bond movie.
Oh, look at you!
I don't think James Bond is as interesting as the villains are. But after Javier Bardem, and like Mads Mikkelsen, I was like, I want to be a villain. That's so cool.
What would be your Bond villain name?
What would my Bond? No, you know what? I think my Bond villain name would be really like average. I would be like the no-name guy that was like a super hacker and
like Clue. Or
like fucking shit up, and then like
Yeah.
I go out in a big burst of flames.
Right. Yeah, King of Jank in the chat said, fucked. All right, now, rolling on.
All right, let's keep going. All right. Number 9.
That's one of my favorite numbers, by the way.
Okay. Ask the interviewer anything.
Yeah. So this one's for you, sir.
I get to ask you anything.
Yes. So you get to jump back into your regular hosting role.
Okay.
Just for one question. Okay.
What is a question
that this one?
No one asks you that you wish people asked you?
Damn, that is fantastic. What do I want to brag about, right? Or something?
Yeah, whatever.
Jeez. I don't know. Maybe like the balance between having 4 children, having a full-time job, and still living out this kind of old man dream, albeit not very well, but still, still doing it.
Okay.
That's something, because I think that, not to toot my own horn, beep, but it is a special thing to try to do, because I'm constantly 24/7 I'm juggling. whether it's on Twitter or making content or just being there with the wife and kids, stuff like that. Because this is Magic's only half the story on this channel. The rest is reviewing movies, so I still have to watch 6 movies before I have a Paul Thomas Anderson review with Jason Alt. So it's a struggle.
Oh, I love Jason Alt.
I love Jason Alt, but I don't want to talk about him too well because you know what I mean. Yeah. All right. Let's roll it up.
Let's roll it up one more time. Last one.
Yeah. It's got to end for a question for you.
12.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't like this one.
What's my coffee order?
Mulligan. We're gonna go to 6.
No, we got to keep going.
Yep. We got to keep going. Number 10. Most embarrassing
drug
story you can tell.
Oh, this one's good.
Yes.
This one's good.
How about when I hosted a podcast and I spilled beer on my shirt?
This one's very good. So I will not say which film director. But this is a film director because this person's a professional. I want to respect them. So a film director. We went to go see a screening with this film director, and I will just say he. So we went out drinking and we drank a little too much, and we drank so much that we just were blackout, and we couldn't get anywhere, get home or whatever else. We were the entire group of people we were just totally trashed. And so he Ubers it back home, and he's like, "Oh my God, I'm so hammered." And then I didn't even make it back to my car. I literally just crashed out in the bushes and just threw up all over myself and conked out in the bushes.
We've been there.
Woke up at 5, and then we all literally just walked down the street and was just screw it and just crashed in the bushes and and then later on woke up in the morning and sobered up, was wow, I didn't know how we didn't get arrested, scooped up by a street sweeper or something like that.
Yeah.
And then went home and was super hammered and just was in the shower. And then my wife and I, we were just oh my God, we were if we ever had a Netflix show, this would be the opening scene. Because we were just
that's awesome.
It was very ridiculous.
Very Breaking Bad.
Very much so. And even until this day, every once in a while we see tequila or something. I do not drink. I still will text that movie director and filmmaker, and we will still joke, and we'd be wow, that one night it was crazy. So.
Awesome. Well, that's a perfect way to end this. Sam, you were a ton of fun. Thank you so much for planeswalking in on the Hive Mind. Where can everyone find you, sir?
Well, I'm on Twitter at SamoTango. I also have a YouTube channel, Play MTG. So you can go to youtube.com/playmtg and you'll find me. I'm also at kitchentablemagic.org. That's where you find KTM Podcast. And so, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much again for joining us. Also, if you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at OrzovDunn, Facebook and Instagram as Jonathan Dunning, because that's my name. Thank you again, Cardsphere, for making the Hive Mind possible. Again, if you want to go check them out, that's cardsphere.com, and go get your cool swag at txcp.store to get your 15% off with promo code HiveMind. So, for Sam Tang, I'm Jon Dunning. Thank you so much, Planeswalkers. We'll see you next time in the multiverse.